Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Now, if you're considering starting out a nursery or just interested in this kind of content for any number of reasons, there's one topic for somebody working in a nursery or who's responsible for a nursery that you really are kind of working on all the time, and that is, are you going for a large variety of plants in your nursery, or are you going for fewer varieties and greater numbers of fewer plants? That's what I want to take a look at today. What's king in the nursery? What's the best approach in a nursery? Lots of variety or putting more of your eggs into one basket? Let's dive into this question today. Now, the first thing that I want to do is talk about varieties and a variety of varieties. So let's think about that for a minute. In a nursery, in a retail setting like mine, one thing that we're really aiming for is to have a large variety of plants. So let's just kind of talk about that. Now, sitting right here where I am, I can see that we have several perennials right here around me. We have Garda right here, we have bee balm right here, we have Baptisia right here, catmint, dianthus, sedum. This is a tick seed called red satin. There's another dianthus over there called rockin' red. I have lavender behind me, and this is just one spot where you can see a good variety of our perennials. Now, the reason that this is a good thing is because we sell all these for the same price, about $7 a plant, and people come in the springtime and they buy these by the 10s, by the 20s, by the 30s, and having a large variety of those is a really good thing to have because they get just a few of everything when they're planning out kind of their strategy and how they're going to kind of map out their planting for the year. And, you know, they've got a new flower bed, they've got a new area under their windows in front of their house, and they want to fill it in with lots and lots of things that make lots of color. Well, you want to have a variety of colors. You want to have some pinks, you want to have some whites, you want to have some reds, some purples, some yellows. And by doing that, you're going to become kind of a one-stop place for perennials, and perennials have got to be a staple in virtually any retail nursery. Now, just to be clear, when I use the word perennial, chances are if you're watching this video, you know the difference between an annual and a perennial, but here's what happens. People come here all the time, especially in the springtime, and they don't know the difference between an annual and perennial. They say, now, a perennial is the one that comes back every year, or the one I have to plant every year. So when I'm talking about perennials, I'm talking about plants that are thought of as flowers, and they just come back year after year after year. Kind of the classic perennial that's everywhere, and everybody knows what it is a daisy. I mean, daisies are among the most common perennials there are, but all of these others that I'm showing you guys, and Penny has to make her appearance, all these others I'm showing you guys, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other varieties, you just really need these colored perennials in your nursery in the springtime. They're a must-have. Now, another category of plant that you're going to want to have in your nursery while we're talking about varieties is like what I call woody shrubs. Now, I didn't make that term up at all, but woody shrubs are shrubs that they leaf out and they flower every year. Some of them aren't really noted for their flowers, but anyway, they leaf out every year, and they generally have like multiple branches on them. So you guys are very well familiar with the fact that I grow a lot of hydrangeas, and that's kind of our staple woody shrub. Now, just kind of give you an example of that, just sitting right here where I am, I can see several varieties of hydrangea that are great for the nursery. Now, right beside me here, I can see the Annabelle hydrangea, I can see the limelight hydrangea, the silver dollar hydrangea, two different varieties of oak leaf. I've got some that are called Alice, some that are called ruby slippers. I have another variety right here in front of me that I just have grown these for the first time this year, bought these plugs in. It's a patented variety called Little Quickfire, and hopefully they'll be really nice next year. So just with one genus, I guess you'd say, of plant, the hydrangea, I have multiple varieties of that one woody shrub, and it's because they sell like crazy. Now, we're trying to expand this as we go to not just have hydrangeas, but this year we've been growing loropetalums. Loropetalums have been selling great for us this year. We've tried growing viburnums this year. That's another one that has sold really well for us this year. And those are just some examples of woody shrubs, but there's others like, you know, the early spring, very late winter classic, like a forsythia. That's another example of a woody shrub. And there's just all sorts of them. So that's a category of plant that you would do well to have some variety of in your nursery. Now another thing that's worth mentioning when we're talking about growing a nursery and what kinds of plants that you might sell, like you're going to try to get a large variety of plants versus going big on just one or two or three kinds of plants, is that you can take a nursery in virtually any direction you want to go as far as plants go. Now, something that I don't talk a lot about is a nursery for just edibles. So for example, if you became the person in your area who had a steady supply of blueberries, blackberries, any kind of berry that's common in your area that people like to eat, whatever kind of fruit trees you can think of, all the standards from apples and pears to whatever, you name the fruit. Again, think about your area. You could do an entire nursery of nothing but edibles. So I want to mention that. We're going to have blueberries this spring. Looking forward to having those. But you can do a nursery on nothing but edibles and not have all these varieties of perennials and woody shrubs and screening trees and not have any of that and just have edibles. And you could have an incredibly effective nursery, and people would come there from all over the place just to buy edibles. So that's something for you to think about when you're thinking about what you might put in your nursery or things you might add to your nursery or a singular direction to take your nursery. Another direction that a nursery can go, more varieties that are good to have, are all these varieties that are grown in a greenhouse. So we're talking about plants like ferns, and we're talking about plants like all of your annual bedding flowers, your petunias and your begonias and all that whole world of greenhouse grown early spring plants that people love to come and buy. We were just introduced to those this year, and at least for now, the only way we're dealing with those is by buying them and reselling them. We're not growing those ourselves, but then you have a whole other season of those in the fall when you're talking about doing your petunias, and even into Christmas, doing plants like poinsettias. I mean, there's just no end to directions that your nursery can go. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about some of these varieties, kind of just get some of these things in your mind about all the directions that you can potentially go and many, many more. But while we're talking about this, I want to focus in also on the need and sometimes the necessity of going big on certain single items. All right, so if you guys watch this channel at all, you know that I'm a bit of a freak about hydrangeas, but let's just be really, really clear about something. I'm not really so much just, over the moon crazy about hydrangeas, is that my customers are. And since my customers are, then I'm going to be also. So here, let me just kind of lay this out there for you, and I'm saying this for accountability a year and 2 years down the road, and I haven't talked to anybody about this except my wife. So here goes. In about 2 years from now, year and a half from now, whatever the time frame is going to be, we're going to have something at our place like the North Alabama Hydrangea Bonanza or something like that, where we're going to advertise it far and wide, and we're hoping to sell thousands of hydrangeas in a single weekend. Now, that might sound crazy. It might sound like, well, why would you do all that with one plant? It's because people are absolutely nuts about hydrangeas, and they know that they can come to our nursery and get great plants at a fair price. And we're not trying to make you have to sell your kidney or get a second mortgage on your house to be able to afford these things. We're trying to grow and sell affordable, really nice plants. So we haven't put all our eggs in the hydrangea basket, but we've got a lot of them in the hydrangea basket. But we know that we can sell them. We're not guessing, and kind of over time, we have learned that this is one of those plants that people are absolutely nuts over. So we want to be the people who grow them and sell them. And hydrangeas are not the only plant that we've decided to grow a whole bunch of. Now, one of the plants in our nursery that we do have a whole lot of is Arborvitaes, whether it's emerald green Arborvitaes or green giant Arborvitaes. In this case, where I'm standing right here, this is our area where our emerald green Arborvitaes are. You can see a few of them scattered around me right here immediately, and then right out this way, there's hundreds more going back this direction. Now, through the years, as we've been kind of learning how to grow plants, and we've been really kind of figuring out what to grow and what not to grow, and what sells great and what doesn't, we found that these screening trees sell really well. So we have committed each year to grow a lot of them because we sell a lot of them. And just in this fall season, now today it is September the 30th. We're at the very end of September, and just in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just right here along where I'm standing, and you can kind of see, where there's missing spots everywhere where there were trees. We've sold about 450 of these emerald green arborvitaes alone, and that's just these little trees here, and this is probably 22 to 24 inches tall, and people are coming and buying these things from us by the dozens, even when we're not necessarily technically open and having a plant sale. We put these on Facebook Marketplace and we sell them for about $7 a piece, and people come and get them. And so there are people who have driven almost 200 miles to come and get these from us. So we really do sell and grow a lot of these, way more than any other single plant. So as far as I'm concerned, plants like the emerald green arborvitae, the green giant arborvitae, you got to know what grows in your area and what fits your climate and your situation. But there's no way in my nursery that I'm not going to have a whole lot of both of these. And there are other plants that ultimately, as we're scaling up the size of our nursery, that we're going to want to go big on. And let me give you at least one good reason why to do that. Well, let me give you at least 2 good reasons why there's a need to do that. But it's going to be specific to what works in your area. You can't just do what I do because you think what I do is a good idea. Maybe it is a good idea, but it's just kind of what we have figured out by trial and error. But let me give you at least 2 good reasons why it's good to go big on at least a couple of items, or not several. Now, I've mentioned it already, but it bears repeating that the reason we go so big on our arborvitaes, at least part of it, is because people are always looking to buy a lot of them. Nobody buys one ever. Nobody buys 3 or 4, hardly ever. And people oftentimes buy them dozens at a time. So we need to have a lot of them to satisfy that need that a lot of people have for a privacy screen in their yard or on their farm or wherever it may be. So think about items like hydrangeas, arborvitaes, maybe even something like blueberry plants. There's so many plants it could be that you want to have a lot of because people buy a lot of them at one time. So those plants happen to fall into that category. Again, there are many others. And from week to week or even year to year, you never know exactly what that plant might be, but you can count on those, at least in my area, for being plants that people are buying a lot of. So there's a really good reason to have them, at least the first reason. A second reason why it's good to have variety, not only variety, but also a lot of some items. Now, this one may sound a little bit strange to you, and I think I have more than enough evidence to back this up. It's not just one anecdote at one guy's place, but when I'm scrolling down through my Square Reader that I do all of my transactions on, at least all of my credit card ones, I have the name of every person who did a transaction with us this spring, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names. And one thing that you notice, scrolling through the names on the list, is probably between 80 and 90% of the names are women. Now, what does that tell us, and how can we capitalize on that as a nursery? Now, there are varieties of plants that, whether you like this or not, whether you believe this or not, women just like to come buy flowers. And I mean lots of them. And by the way, thank God for the women who come here and buy flowers. I'm grateful for every single one. All the women and their mothers who come by, they're wonderful. I love visiting with them and chatting with them. But you got to have plants that the men come and buy. And the men are coming by to buy the screening trees, the privacy trees. They're the ones who are coming by to buy the dogwood trees and the weeping willow trees. And they're the ones who are coming by to buy the edibles, the fruit trees, and the blueberry plants. So you want to get as much of your potential market to your sales as you can. And in doing so, variety is going to win on that. So you got to have flowers, and you don't really think of it as flowers for the women and trees for the men, but that's the way that the sales bear themselves out. So what's going to happen is when they come and buy these trees, they're buying lots and lots and lots of them. So You need to have your varieties, yes, but you also need to have lots of certain things. And sometimes it's as sneaky as understanding that men buy one thing and women buy another thing. And that's not just my opinion, that's what the sales actually show me. So as time goes on, I'm going to have those things in mind. And we're going to always be paying attention then to trying to expand our varieties, but paying attention to what plants we need to try to go big on in order to capture as much market as we can and meet as much need as we can. It's good for the public who's buying, and it's good for our business who is selling. So guys, we're at the very end of selling season. We've actually closed our nursery up for the year, but right where I'm standing, you can see behind me a large variety of plants, and you can also see large numbers of individual plants. We have both, and we always have both, and I hope that we always do have both. And what I wanted to show you in this video is just kind of how we do it, and to get you thinking about how this might look in your setting and how you might plan your nursery going forward, how you might get started and how you may scale up once it's time for you to do that. But all that to say, I hope this is helpful to you guys today. Thank y'all for watching. I love y'all, and we'll see you on the next one.